Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DMs Guild review, my written and video view series. Take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video will be reviewing the Warlock subclass Pact of the Gambler, designed by Brandon Cedeno for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Manuel, Wizard, Princess, Christopher, Star, Loverly, Thomas, Ian, Captain Mike, Jeremy, Adam, Leroy, and Goblin Works. And gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcos, Did Vicente, Gilberto, Desert, Lizard Lounge, Samaras, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Fatboy 619, Sclenny, Nick, Friday McButterplants, Blood, Angel, Veronis, The Fireworks Factory, and Baboon. Baboon, thank you all very much for your support. You all know that I love my Warlocks. I still think it's one of the most enjoyable classes to play. Who doesn't like the character who sells part of themselves for power? And I just think it's implemented in a lot of fun ways, given the different subclasses, the Pact magic, the unique spells that you get, and the invocations, which allow every Warlock to really be in their own, even though there's the joke about how Warlocks always just do Eldritch Blast. But I think there's still a lot of fun you can have in there. This is not the first class that I have reviewed that uses playing cards as a resource. Don't ask me what. I know I've reviewed at least one other one. Don't ask me what it was. I've literally reviewed hundreds of DMs Guild products over the years. I just know there was at least one more. And I liked seeing it there, and I like seeing it here. I think it's a really cool idea. D&D is such, obviously, a dice-based game that we introduce cards. It feels unique and special, provided that the system is rewarding and it's well utilized, and somehow you can balance that even though you are the gambler. And there's good precedence for that. I always think of, like, you know, Final Fantasy Tactics, or to use a modern example, like Bravely Default. Maybe Dragon Quest might have this too, where there is a class, specifically like a gambler style class, that you use your abilities and maybe you're not quite sure what's going to happen. Like, you cast one buff, but you're not quite sure what that buff is going to be. I think that's a neat idea for a class. Or in the case of D&D 5e, probably a better idea for a subclass. In this case, Warlock, sure, why not? Instead, your patron grants you a magical deck of cards. A full deck of 54 cards, including jokers. Now, as you can see, first of all, this game has no, this product has no cover, which is weird. There was cover art on the DMs Guild product page, which I used for my splash screen at the introduction here, but nothing here, and there's no art in this product whatsoever. So you can already probably tell what one of my biggest cons is going to be. Granted, this is an extremely inexpensive product. I don't generally comment on the price, because the price can just run the gamut, but I'm not here to comment on the price. I'm here to comment on the quality of the product, and obviously not having any art whatsoever, especially when there's just, I mean, I would probably complain about this too, and I have complained about this when somebody just uses stock art, but at least that's better than having no art whatsoever. Like, there is free stock art you can just throw in here. But if you're doing this, you can also, you know, you can include playing cards and all these different little gambling motifs, like, you know, little poker chips and things. Like, you can have a lot of fun with this outside of using standard D&D art. Fortunately, none of that is here. What is here is a surprisingly interesting class, though, given how this product doesn't look good, frankly, if we're just, you know, judging it by its cover or lack thereof and lack of art. But I think it's actually got some cool ideas. First of all, you get your deck of cards. You can, with that deck of cards, use it to cast the specific spells you get, your patron spells, I guess, if you will, which are a lot of divination-style spells, which makes sense because you're, you know, playing cards and it has kind of that theme. Maybe not necessarily the tarot cards, but you get Calm Emotion, Zone of Truth, Clairvoyance, Divination, those kind of things. But here's the crazy thing. You can actually use your cards as spell slots. Spells are cast through your Pact deck, in which you remove the amount of cards equal to the spell level from the deck to the discard pile in order to cast the spell. Now, is that instead of your spell slots? Because that's pretty crazy. It doesn't say. It also doesn't say if you can upcast these spells, because at first I was like, holy shit, you're giving somebody 54 cards, and you're telling me I can discard one card to cast Dissonant Whispers? Or Unseen Servant? That's a shit ton. What if I want to upcast it, though? What if I want to cast Dissonant Whispers, a level 8 spell? Can I discard 8 spells? So 8 cards? needs to be a little bit more information there, because these are the questions that I instantly had upon reading this and did not find that information. Instead, the other thing you can do with your deck of cards is, as a bonus action, which is also kind of weird, you can draw a card and throw it and gain either an attack, a luck point, or a basically wild magic surge. But it's not the wild magic surge table from the player's handbook. You get your own unique 100 list of crazy effects that can happen on the wild magic table. Most of them are good, some of them are silly, but generally because you kind of maybe want to draw the Joker, so I think they more err on the side of good rather than kind of the mix that the original wild magic surge table is. This is a cool idea, and I like the fact that the card that you draw tells you what kind of damage it does, as well as what die of damage that you deal. So if you draw a low value card, it's only a D4. If you're drawing between an 8 and a 10, it's a D8. And if you draw a face card, it's a D10. Ace gives you the luck point, and Joker, of course, gives you the wild magic surge. That's a neat idea. I don't know if I'm sold on allowing this as a straight up bonus action to just gain this extra ability. That gives a Warlock a lot of power, because that means you could cast a spell and then throw your card to deal significantly decent damage, potentially. And then later on, at 10th level, the Ante Up ability lets you throw 2 cards with that same bonus action, and a third one if you wanted to give yourself exhaustion. But just 2 cards, the 2 attacks with the bonus action potentially is pretty damn powerful. The other main thing you do with your deck of cards are the dealer's gambits, which operate similarly to the Warlock invocations in that you can select, I believe, 2 of them right at 3rd level when you would take this pact, and you can gain another one ever so often whenever you level up, pretty much similar to the way the Warlock invocations work. And these dealer gambits are actually really, really fun and cool ideas. These allow you to manipulate your deck, and essentially you're drawing and discarding cards from your deck to gain some kind of ability. So I kind of wrote down some examples. You can trap enemies in a literal house of cards. You can use one of these abilities, a card sharp, to basically draw multiple cards as if you're doing your bonus action thing and do a whole bunch of them. You can turn 8s into wild jokers, crazy 8s. You can heal with your cards. You can attempt to cheat your own patron and sneak a card back into your deck, which is that swindle ability. You can use cards to reduce damage, to add to armor class. Basically, any kind of mechanic you can think of is included here with a couple prerequisites similar to how invocations work. There are 30 of these available, divided between level 1, 6, and 12 for the really powerful features. I looked up in the original player's handbook, there are only a little over 30 Warlock invocations. And keep in mind, you're still a freaking Warlock, so you still get your Warlock invocations on top of picking all these dealer gambits. That's a lot. And I am a big fan of the invocation system in that it gives player, and same thing with the like the fighter, what is it called, Battle Master, who gains all the maneuvers. Basically any kind of feature, that Arcane Archer, that gives you the ability to pick and choose abilities so that you can customize your own subclass and your own class, even more so than just picking a subclass. I'm a big fan of that, and Warlock has that built in with the invocations for all Warlocks, and this gives you an additional one on top of that, which is probably no 2 Pact of the Gamblers are going to be the same, because you can pick these different dealer gambits and be able to flip cards and have different effects. And some of them you are flipping quite a few amount of cards. You're flipping, 6 cards or 8 cards or 15 cards to do some kind of effect, and now you're burning through it, and you're also using those cards as your bonus action to throw out the damage, as well as to cast the spells, although I'm still a little confused on how the whole spell casting cards as a resource thing works. I still have all those questions about it. But I think this is a really neat system with the Dealer's Gambit, and the fact that you can pick up more as you level up is a really neat idea. At 6th level, you can discard extra cards whenever you use any ability where you're discarding cards, which are pretty much all those Dealer Gambits, or discarding cards to cast a spell. You can put them in kind of a sidebar area called the whole card pile. And whenever you reach 0 hit points, you can then flip all these cards that you've put into this section and either deal that much damage to an enemy or regain hit points. I think 9 times out of 10, you'd want to self-heal to regain hit points, because that seems incredibly powerful of a feature to be able to do. I kind of like the idea of you sidebarring it in there, but the fact that you can just use that to heal yourself whenever you reach 0 seems very, very powerful. Ante Up, as we already mentioned, you can just throw an additional card during the bonus action throwing of the card thing, which, again, is a very powerful feature. So all of this stuff seems kind of overpowered, and then we get to Loan Shark Contract, which is very weirdly a stupid underpowered ability despite it being a 14th level. First, you have to touch a creature, which is already difficult to do as a squishy warlock. Then they get to make a charisma saving throw. If they fail, then a counter appears above them, a magical counter that starts at 1. And as a reaction, which is kind of a weird thing for you to keep up with, you can increase that counter by 1, but every time they attack and deal damage to you, they reduce that counter by 1. So you're weirdly kind of putting a target on your back if for some reason the enemy knows this is happening and knows to attack you. I don't know how you'd rule that as a DM either. The whole point of this is if the counter reaches 4, they gain a level of exhaustion, and then it resets back to 1. So all of this work that you're doing, you have to touch them, they have to fail a charisma save, you have to keep using your reaction for multiple turns until it finally reaches 4, and then all you're doing is bestowing a level of exhaustion, and then it goes over to 1. That's really dumb. It just seems stupid for that much work and I've never heard of an ability that gives enemies exhaustion. It seems like that's something you track with the players, but trying to keep up with exhaustion as a DM to individual enemies would be a nightmare. Maybe allied NPCs can do it, but enemies? Like, what? Why not just have that be like a death counter or something where you're trying to work that way up to death? I guess that would still be a little imbalanced because you could do it on a boss or something, but I don't know. It's a weird ability, and I don't know if the counter thing even makes sense. It doesn't feel super thematic either. I don't know. It's a weird ability, and that's supposed to be the high level, like 14th level Pact of the Gambler thing, and I was just completely unimpressed. Whereas the other stuff, I was like, oh, this stuff is very powerful. Like, I like the card idea. That's really cool. I like the idea of you being able to draw the cards and have that do different damage depending on what the card is. I like that idea. I'm not sure about giving that as a bonus action. That seems a little powerful, especially when you're able to draw 2 cards later on. The whole card thing, the fact that you can self-heal yourself when you reach 0 seems very powerful. And obviously using cards as spell slots, if I'm reading that correctly, seems very, very powerful. So I don't know. Maybe that all balances itself out, but it still seems very odd. I don't think having overpowered abilities and underpowered abilities is a good way to balance a class either, in general. I am a big fan of the Dealer's Gambits. I think they work very, very well. As I mentioned, there are 30 of them here. There's a lot of really cool ideas. They're all very thematic. I dig, of course, all the different poker terms that are used here, which is very fun. And we get a full D100 Wild Magic table, which is just skimming over it, mostly different new stuff from the Wild Magic Surge table. Like there are a couple of them that's like you cast a spell, but some of them are, you get drunk or you overpower a weapon, and some of them are just silly ones like you hear a ballad in the distance, or you summon some kind of monster that immediately attacks. Some of them are a little too vague. One of them is like you summon a demon. Well, you can't just say a demon. You gotta give me an actual stat block for that, because what is that going to mean to the DM? Does that mean any demon? So there needs to be probably a little more clarification on some of these, but that is impressive that we get a full D100. And a lot of times when you get a D100 list, it's like, if you roll 45 to 50, so it's not a real, 100 list. This is seriously every single entry is a unique thing. So that is a lot of features. Chances are you're not going to get the same one twice for your Pact of the Gambler. So ultimately kind of a mixed bag, but I do really, really like the idea of a class that uses cards. I don't know if this is the one that I would go with if somebody were to want to use that feature, but it's still something I would love to see explored more of in future subclasses. Let's go over my pros and cons for Pact of the Gambler. Pro uses actual playing cards to power spells and attacks. I think it's a cool concept. I want to see that done more. I'm not sure if this is the right one that's doing that, but it's a really neat idea, and I especially like the concept of you can draw cards and then the face of the cards matter and the number of the cards matter, and some of them give you different abilities, some of them do damage depending on when you draw that, as well as fueling other abilities. So I think the card thing is done very well and is thematically rewarding here. Pro, 30 Dealer's Gambit abilities to fine-tune your Gambler. These are all really fun features. The fact that we get so many of them, and they all offer pretty cool, useful abilities for the most part by, again, using that deck, which is your main whole reason you're picking this class, is a really neat concept. And Pro, a full D100, actual D100 table full of wild magic things. Honestly, the designer could have just said roll in the Wild Magic Surge table, and that probably would have been fine. But so I really think they kind of went above and beyond by providing their own unique wild magic table. On the negative side, a full deck of 54 cards seems to grant way too many resources. In terms of using all your abilities, that's a lot to keep track of. You've got a lot of options for throwing cards. You've got a lot of options to burn for spell slots. It's just kind of too much. Maybe if you level up, that could be an interesting thing, that you get more cards as you level up or something. Maybe you have to deal yourself a certain number of cards at the beginning. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like having 54 cards to work with every long rest, by the way, comes back in a long rest, just feels like too much. And that's the main balance issue I think I have with the full thing. Even Loan Shark Contract also I think sucks, and the other one's a little powerful, but that's my main problem I think, is there's just too many cards, and the cards are used in so many ways that you just give the player too many options. I like having options, but that just seems too powerful. And the other con, obviously, is just no artwork whatsoever. The actual formatting, the headers and all that thing looks fine. It's got the nice background. It looks like an official 5e product, which is great, but you're really lacking any kind of artwork or art aesthetic, and there's a lot of options you could do that. Like I said, just put some playing cards in there or something. Make it, just a little bit, have a little bit of fun with it. Final verdict. Using playing cards as a resource is a fun idea and thematically rewarding, though Pact of the Gambler also highlights the challenge in balancing a card-based subclass. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.